Hello everyone. Today we'll be talking about climate change, and this is a really serious problem, not just for me, not just for you, but uh, totally for the world, and especially for people living in developing countries. We are facing the most, and talking about this and taking serious about this is really needed. Here we will talk a few things that can be causes, and what are we really doing about it. So in this picture you can see this is Earth, and on the other side there is Venus. So we also call it as the Venus as a Earth twin. The only difference, or yeah, apart from the size of Venus is almost twice the Earth. But that is not important. What is important is the carbon content. We almost everywhere there is talked on the carbon emission. So where does it start from? So the carbon content of the Earth and the carbon content of Venus. So we are talking about the carbon content of the atmosphere of the Earth is different from the carbon content of the atmosphere of the Venus. So how it is different is that the carbon content of carbon dioxide or carbon in the atmosphere on the Earth is very less, that is 0.03%. However, the carbon dioxide content on the atmosphere of the Earth is 96.5%, which is really a great difference, and because of which there is a very high temperature uh, at the atmosphere of Venus, where not a living being can survive. On the other hand, the very low concentration of 0.03% carbon dioxide lets the Earth cool, and then let living beings survive on Earth. There are carbon contents embedded in the Earth's crust, in the uh, in the lower mantle, or in the continental and oceanic lithosphere, or the on the surface of the Earth in the form of many living beings. So these are carbons. We are rich in carbon, but in the not in the atmosphere. So this is the main difference between the two planets. So why are we concerned about carbon uh, and its concentration on the atmosphere? We will see shortly. Okay, before that, we need to know that uh, burning of fossil fuels like the petroleum oil, and then the coal and gases, and then deforestation, they are the prime causes of carbon dioxide emission, or concentration in the increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So, okay, what happens when there is increase in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Why are we really concerned about it? So you might have learned in your childhood that there is a greenhouse effect. What is greenhouse effect again? So there is the Earth, and on top of the Earth there is the atmosphere. When the sun rays gets into the Earth, the radiations of the sun comes into the Earth, and then they re-radiate the heat into the atmosphere, leaving the Earth a cool place. But the concentration of gases, especially carbon dioxide, methane, and then nitrous oxide, fluorinated gas, and then CFC gas, when these gases are inside the atmosphere, it lets the solar radiation enter into the Earth. but it cannot re-radiate or leaves the earth out into the atmosphere. So it doesn't leave the atmosphere, and then they are inside the layer, so which makes the heat enter, and they are not escaped from the layer, makes the earth uh, heat, it heats the atmosphere in this way. So this, the very easy example for this is when you expose your car into the sunlight for a long time, and then when you open the door of the car, you will experience that there is a very hot air inside the car. What happens is there is a sunlight that enters into the car, and then it cannot escape the car. So this effect is called as the greenhouse effect. And here the main reason for the greenhouse effect is the carbon dioxide, or it is also known as the greenhouse gas. So that is really happening, and because of this, the carbon content into the atmosphere is a really big matter. So there are carbon contents stored in gigatons in the ecosystem of the earth, like in the vegetation, soil, permafrost, atmosphere, and then there is the continental crust and upper mantle, land use change, upper uh, ocean, and then industrial emission. These are the sources of carbons in the ecosystem of the earth. So people might be talking about the rise in the temperature, and 1 degree rise in temperature or 3 degree rise in temperature globally really impacts. How does it impact? For a normal day-to-day basis, the 1 degree rise in temperature is not a very big matter, but in a global level this can be disastrous, and uh, huge calamities, natural calamities uh, are caused with a 1 degree rise in temperature. So when does this rise in temperature uh, come into place is from the beginning of the rise in the industrial revolution, that is around 1950. There is the rise in the atmospheric temperature. So since since the time of industrial revolution, it has the rise in temperature has slowly increased, but in a recent time the rise in temperature has speeded up in a very fast way. So the problem is now a global 1 degree rise in temperature can reach to a very high level. Here it is depicted that a 1 degree rise in temperature can reach to the unique and threatened systems. There can be frequency and severity of extreme climate change, and then the global distribution and balance of impacts. So this can go up to a very high rate, but we were expecting 1 degree rise in temperature in a century, but what happens is the rise in temperature is speeding up in a high rate, that in every 10 years there is a very change, or very steep rise in the temperature that we can see, in spite of the policies that we make, and in spite of many governments coming together, like in the Paris Agreement, uh, of controlling the carbon emission into the atmosphere. But still the rise for the till the 3 degree rise is still into its place, and we are like we cannot do much about it. Seems like we cannot do much about it. So we can really face the consequence, especially when you are people living in developing countries, you might be facing extreme flood conditions, extreme drought conditions, cyclones. You would be finding landslides and whatnot. These are not just a problem that we would be seeing in future, but we are actually living in this uh, climate change impacts. So what are the major sources of carbon emissions? There is the rice fields. Why rice fields? When there is a huge large fields, there are methane gas that are emitted from rice fields. And then in wastelands, when you dispose a lot of waste, and these waste, they emit methane gas. And sometimes when there are very high temperature rise, they can also cause fire. So then there is industrialization that is still going on, and people are still uh, emitting such huge carbons. And then deforestation for reasons like urbanization, especially, or for many other reasons. And then there is the air pollution due to vehicles, cars that we drive. Every household has their, not only every household, every single independent person almost has cars. And how much they contribute to the air pollution. And then there is urbanization, and they are like a concrete jungle in spite of the trees or plants that should be planted and absorb uh, the rainwater, and then give out oxygen and take in carbon dioxide. In spite of that, we are having urbanization on over urbanization and cutting down trees. And then there are power plants. What are these power plants? What we do is we burn coals, and then from burning of coals, then we get electricity out of it, and we power our own homes, and then many factories, and so on. So this is a never ending process that is going on, and that is still a big problem. So then there is mining of various minerals from the earth's crust. And so many of these are the major sources of carbon emission. So how this will impact? So heat waves, we are facing it, and we are facing it very frequently. uh, the summers The summers do not start from May or April, but it starts from February. In India, there are certain states where the temperature in during March or at the end of February reaches 40 degrees Celsius. So again, these are heat waves. And what heat waves is happening is there is a very high rise in temperature. And you know what, that the body normally sweats, and when there is a high heat waves, high rise in temperature and high rise in humidity, what happens is the sweat that you produce to cool your body does not work, because the humidity is already very high, and because of which the heat waves can be dangerous. So there are so many people that are really facing the heat wave because they go outdoors and they work for their livelihood. So in agricultural sector, if you see in India, uh, they are one of the people, they are most affected people, or they are really facing the heat outdoors, or the heat waves. So what they do is uh, their works as a farmers, uh, there is no proper rainfall. And then due to heat waves, the capability of the farmers are tremendously decreased. And there is no proper rainfall in time. and which there is no proper water in the crops. This leads to the high productivity loss. And these are not just the problems of farmers, these are also impacting us. How? So when there is productivity loss of the plants, or we are certainly depending on them, so the rise in prices can really be a problem for us. So you can see when there is a high problems in cultivating, and people are facing in cultivating, and then there is a financial problems, and farmers, they tend to suicide. And then there is again a high food prices, and then there is low productivity. Again, these are not just a problem, there would be pest plant diseases on crops, uh, and then pest everywhere. So these are the impacts of the heat waves and climate change. So not just the farmers, the construction workers, how they are really affected. And you know how many people are there as construction workers in India? There are crores and crores of people that are working as construction workers as their livelihood, and their health are greatly affected because they do heavy work, and their potential to do heavy work lessen to a very high level when they really face the heat waves, and because of which their potential is down, and their productivity is less, and there will be hunger and malnutrition that is followed after that. So this is again the impact in an everyday, uh, for a normal people, the most important thing that we need is electricity, of course. And during summers we need it in a very high rate. So every household, they need electricity for AC, they need electricity for refrigerator, cooler. And then how many houses need all these? And in summers, especially when there is heat waves, people, when there is a huge need of electricity, there will be frequent power cuts. Why? It's because the power that normally come, there would be the need is highly increased at that point of time, and then we really face the real heat at that point of time. So this electricity again, we are getting it by burning the coal, because that is the major source of uh, you know electricity in our country. So the problem is circulating, and it's not lessening here. So nobody is thinking of how to cool otherwise, or in other sustainable way. But rather than that, we are uh, putting ourselves into problems. So in this picture, this the socio-economic clusters. You can see the red one, red color depicting the low income people, the orange color depicting lower middle income, the light green color upper middle income people, and the dark green color with higher income. So you can see that the higher income people are less affected. They will be affected, but they are less affected compared to the low income people. You can see there is a you know depiction. In 2030 there could be 12.3 billion people affecting from lower income family. In 2060 there would be 17.8 billion people. In 2090 there would be 19.8 billion people affecting, uh, followed by the lower middle income family. But the most affecting people are the lower income families. So this is the impacts of the heat stressed people affecting the uh, lower class family. You can see how the burning of coal for power generation to generate electricity and causing the rise in the hazardous uh, gases like carbon dioxide, and then and many other CFC gas or trinitrofluoride, and so many such other hazardous gas emitting into the atmosphere, and because of which the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, there is the heat wave circulating around the earth. And you can see on the left hand side how the total cooler has really covered the total building. So are we ready to face the consequences? uh, we are not ready, but we have to face, because this is the reality and we cannot escape it. So the consequences like floods all around, and this is not the future, this is where we are living, and this is the fact. And you can see how many floods have already occurred and already occurring here in the state, like in the country like India. Again, droughts in many parts of the country. You'll find water scarcity, and apart from water scarcity, most of the surface water that are present, they are mostly polluted. Almost 70% of the earth's surface water has been polluted, and there is a scarcity of drinking water. You can see frequent cyclones uh, on those people or places where they are close to sea beaches. So then there would be crop pest and diseases frequently, and which is again a major cause of price increase. And then there will be unpredictable and unreliable seasons, and then food insecurity and famines that will be prevailing, and that is prevailing, we are facing it, it's not future. So let's see how humans forcefully interfere with nature. These are some examples. So you can see this picture. You won't believe it, but this is a river, not just the water, but the other parts of this picture. These are the river. So here I am showing you Mahanadi River, and you can see here piling up of sand in small pieces. So the total land was covered by sand, and the sand has been mined out, and the total green color has been, take the sand from the total place has been removed or mined out illegally, and then some only a few patches of the sand is remained. So what happens is, when the sand is mined out in a very high rate, what remains is the soil. So when there is a soil, there is a plants growing over it. So what happens is, the capacity to absorb water has tremendously decreased. So during a rainy season, when there is a need for absorption of water, so there will be no absorption of water. So in this photo, again, I'm showing you the grass growing over the surface where there is no sand remains uh, in the surface. So what are the consequences? There is no water absorption, and when there is no water absorption during rainy season, the consequence is floods. So these are the consequence, and so many people's lives has been lost, their utilities, their homes has been flooded due to the floods in the Mahanadi River. No one has ever thought of the reason why there is floods, but we have been blaming one person to another person for not taking proper actions against floods. But the main reason for flood started when we uh, try to get greedy of the taking out of the natural resources. So if we take a normal food in today's world, we do a lot of harm to the environment. We do a lot of harm. How? So when you eat a normal food, those foods are normally industrial based processed food. They are mostly GMO foods. They are mostly high yield foods with fertilizers and pesticides, or they are refrigerated foods or adulterated foods. Most of the food that we eat are not organic or or grown in a good place. So when we eat industrial based processed food, what we do is we are again helping to release industrial hazardous gases, plastic waste, pollution, consumption of preservative chemicals, and while taking GMO foods, there could be allergic problems. There could be loss of many nutritional and medicinal values of these food, and there could be other health risks also. So again, the high yield foods with fertilizers and pesticides, when we eat, we invite many diseases or shorten our lifespan, and then the loss of biodiversity uh, that is taking place. And then refrigerated foods, we think that we will uh, you know keep the lifespan or of the foods that we stored in the refrigerator, but on the other hand, we never thought that there will be lost in the nutritional value, or we are poisoning ourselves. You could be poisoning There could be food poisoning, and then there could be problems like gastrointestinal problems. And again, in the refrigeration process, there is a release of the CFC gas. And while taking adulterated foods, obviously there is the health risk. So just having a simple food, how much of hazards we are causing into the environment, you can just see. So yes, urbanization is uh, happening, and it is happening in a very high rate. And uh, again, as a part of it, pollution is happening. Yes, can you feel it? Yes, we can feel it. We are feeling it. Yes, what are we doing about it? Are we planting plants uh, to cope with it? The plan is to plant trees to cope or minimize the consequence of or the hazards that we are causing. We are planting it. Yes, can you feel it? No. Why we cannot feel it? Because plantation is only in data, or they are the wrong species have been planted. So because of it, we cannot feel the shade of the trees. So this is a total jungle of concrete, and there is very less plants, and there is nothing to absorb rainwater. Where will this water go when there is excess water? They will flood the place itself. So this is how what's happening. And in the name of plantation, most people, you will see that plantation are done just for money and not for the benefit of the ecosystem. How? So there are plants that are not very friendly to the ecosystem, like when we plant invasive plants, when we plant certain plant species that are not native to the place. What happens is they can really compete with other plant species, like in this case for the landscape of Orissa, or in many parts of India, Tectona grandis is not a native species. And what they do is they compete with other species, and they become dominant over it. and they do not let other species, ground flora or ground shrubs or herbs, grow. So what we lost is, we lost certain flora as a food, as medicine, etc. So these are the loss, and this is a loss to the ecosystem. So this is one example. Again, this is the plant that is Acacia auriculiformis. So this is a fast growing plant, but what happens is, again, this is hazardous for the ecosystem. Why? Because this is a fast growing plant, and again, this plant is prone to fire. So when you grow this plant, or plantation of these plants in mass, especially in forest areas, when there is a forest fire, wildfire, these plants can easily catch fire, and they can destroy places near to it. So when people, villagers, when they live near to the plantation of Acacia auriculiformis, they can really destroy the amenities. So I'll show you one example. See, this is the village, in a village. This is a home that is closely very close to the acacia plantation, Acacia auriculiformis plantation, and because of the wildfire or the forest fire, they have destroyed completely. And these can be the consequence of plantation of Acacia auriculiformis, and such invasive species should be really avoided during the plantation program. We should really research on what plants to be planted. So what that all that humans want is money and more money. So he forgets that there is no future with money alone. So what we are doing, we are eating the polluted air, polluted water, polluted food, and diseases. So recently we have come up, or we have been facing so many diseases, like the pandemic, like COVID-19, or virus, so many viral diseases, respiratory diseases, cancer, diabetes, and so many other diseases. uh, why? Because we are not living in a place where we can get clear air, clear water, clear food, and so many pollutions happening, because of which there is droughts, there is floods. And when you only think of money, this is our future with money. This is not the future, this is happening today, and it's really sad. Again, let's see what is the fashion industries impacting the environment. So with coming up or speeding up fashion, uh, more clothes are being manufactured. Huge clothes are being manufactured. They are unsustainable fabrics they are making, and you would be shocked to know that just making of a pair of jeans requires 10,000 liters of water. Just imagine how many jeans is in market, and jeans we are purchasing and not wearing really. So the fashion has speed up in a very fast rate in the recent times, and it accounts for about for a fifth of the 300 million tons of plastic produced globally each year. And fashion also accounts up to 10% of the global carbon dioxide output. So this is the situation of fashion industry. Again, let's see what the climate change has impacted on the other species of earth. So this is a recent photo where a video viral that the deer was seen to be consuming snakes. Just imagine the animal that is normally herbivorous, they have started consuming uh, you know or carnivorous. They have become carnivorous, and there was a report that a giraffe was seen consuming some bones. So these herbivores have turned up into carnivorous. So how the natural food habits have been changed or could be changed in many species on Earth. These are just an example. And about the nature of the other species, like for example dogs, when the heat trigger the aggressiveness to the dog. So we say that in summers dogs can be aggressive, but nowadays due to heat waves there is a frequent very high temperature in most part of the year. So you can see there will be more likeliness to increase the dog bites. And you can imagine in India, in a place like India, there how many stray dogs are there. And then if there is a problem for dog bites, and due to this heat waves, then how can it really be a problem to the society. So what about other species on Earth? There is the extinction. There are so many animals that have been extinct due to the change in the climate. And here, scientists have estimated that in the next 5 centuries, approximately 75% of the species inhabiting the Earth will go extinct. And almost 20,000 or more species are threatened with extinction. And you can see here the giant toothed platypus from the Riverside fossil fields at an aquarium in Queensland. So this we are in the midst of sixth mass extinction, and human could be one of them. So in earlier days or in our childhood, we used to see many fireflies in the dark, in the black or very dark nights. But you might not be seeing much even in forests nowadays, because again, this is due to the human activities. Their breeding seasons are greatly affected due to the lighting systems that we create in a very large level. So the population of fireflies have decreased a lot, and just a few places in a few places you can see fireflies where uh, the lights or during nights are not permitted. So you might see such places with few fireflies. So this is the situation with the other species or some species that are really affected by the activities of us. So how can we really deal it? The problem is huge, the problem is large. We can deal it, but uh, it is near to impossible. But we can really work on it, and we will discuss on what we can do about it in the next session. Thank you so much.